Today is September 26th. I talked yesterday very late in the evening about being flown to Vancouver, Canada, and then being put into a delivery van that had a large metal cage with inside of it, it was basically like, had the same kind of wire type of mesh or design as like a dog cage. Basically a lot of steel just sort of going this way and then this way, making a like a tight kind of a lattice fence, but it was a cage. And they told me to get inside the delivery van, and then I saw this cage, and they told me to get inside that cage, and then they locked it up. So then they drove me in that van while I was in this cage to the Vancouver Immigration Detention Holding Facility. And it's not like a small jail. I had no idea that Canada had such an enormous building for such a thing. It was huge. And the room that I was put into with these other Asian women was very large. It had some separate rooms off to the side, but the main area was it was more like, I don't know, maybe the size of, I mean, I haven't been in a prison, but probably the size of maybe a prison cafeteria or something. I mean, it was a very large room. It was different from a very tiny jail cell. And I mean, it seemed large compared to where I'd just been, but I guess it really wasn't. I mean, I was trying to jog. I actually jogged because I was trying to keep my physical health up. I mean, they had just taken my son from me. And in Penticton, in the jail, to get by, I sang songs and I made up a lot of rhymes making fun of the people there. And I also have to make a correction. It wasn't Russ Haugen. Russ Haugen was a person who was in charge of CPS. It was Ross something or other, and I will have to look up his name again because I have it, but I haven't looked at it for a long time. Who was the immigration person in charge of the Penticton area. And from, I believe, he was coming from a different area, but that had jurisdiction over Penticton when I met him. So the area was like, I mean, I was trying to jog around the perimeter and trying to keep my health up, and I was singing in the jail before that and making up songs about the immigration individual because I had nothing else to do. They refused to bring a doctor to me, and because I was so traumatized for 3 entire days, I didn't sleep. It's the only time in my life that that has ever happened. It wasn't like not sleeping was a common thing for me. I have never had a problem sleeping. I sleep as long as I'm not being tortured. I mean, every night very well. And I've had to pull an all-nighter a couple times for college, but I always need my sleep. And because of the level of trauma and my anxiety level, I did not sleep and could not sleep even though I tried for 3 days. That was 3 days and 3 nights. And they refused to bring a doctor when I was in that condition. I did my best to be hospitable to the couple of other women that were there. And then when I was called to, I kept asking to speak to this attorney, to this Queen's Counsel. And the entire time I'm thinking, well, I can at least get him to vouch that he said I was legal. I mean, at least until maybe I made another attempt tried to ask for political asylum again. And they never wanted me to get a hold of him. And I believe that he is part of the Canadian routine and was all along. So I don't believe that they wanted me to bring him into their hearing and bring the evidence of what I had been told by him. So they basically prevented me from making any phone calls to a lawyer. And then they said, we will assign you a different lawyer for an immigration hearing. So I was then taken to this other area, and I was put into a really tiny room again, and there were other individuals being put into little rooms. And I remember the first time I had anything to eat, I mean, to my recollection, was when I had something from McDonald's, because I hadn't had anything to eat for maybe 3 to 5 days. From the 3 days in the jail, I couldn't eat and didn't eat. I'm sure I drank something, but I don't even remember drinking anything. And then I was in the immigration detention holding place, and I don't remember eating anything there, but I think possibly I drank juice, or maybe I think I had something to drink. And the first time I remember eating anything was when I was then being held into this one place, and they asked, what would you like? We're going to get something from McDonald's, and you have the option of having they're Happy Meals. So they were going to give us Happy Meals. Which is something I got with my son all the time. I mean, I usually cooked for him from scratch, but a few times that I took him out, I either took him to get Kentucky Fried Chicken, maybe actually just a couple times, because usually he liked my fried chicken better. But he really did like the greasy original style Kentucky Fried Chicken. He loved it, because it was kind of like the fried chicken that I made for him, which he really liked. So I a few times got that for him. And then a couple times got him a Happy Meal. And, you know, as a kid I got a Happy Meal. And how bizarre that I'm getting a Happy Meal. I mean, they didn't call it a Happy Meal. It wasn't in like a little kid's cardboard carton thing that you open up with a little toy. But it was basically that. It was, you know, a little French fry, a drink, and a small sandwich. And I guess that's not totally a Happy Meal because it doesn't have the toy, but it's sort of besides the point. I mean, the fact is that it's just bizarre. Everything that was done is bizarre. And they asked if I wanted a hamburger with cheese or a chicken burger. Like, they were little ones. And with a small French fry and a drink. And I remember, I believe I got a Coke, a small French fry, and a chicken burger. And that was the first time I ate, that I remember eating. And then after, I mean, we were waiting for such a long time for these lawyers and for our turn. You know, everybody, they had to see a lot of different people. Most of the people there were men. There were only a few women who were in this holding facility. I don't think it's as common for women to be picked up for certain things like that, or to even, if they really have done something that's an immigration violation, to attempt an immigration violation. And in my case, I mean, I don't know how many people were potentially have been there ever for political asylum, because in my case it was not normal for me to be there when I was trying to ask for political asylum. And the man who drove me to the plane said, how come there's all this attention about you? You don't have a warrant, do you? And I said no. And he said, you have been a bigger deal than someone who might be an axe murderer who comes into Canada and who successfully disappears for a long time. And he said, they've been all over you, basically. I mean, in other words, is what he said. That's what he said. And I don't know if he just probably already knew that, and maybe he just wanted to know if I knew. And I said I didn't know. So I guess that's, they felt satisfied with that kind of an answer, because if I didn't know, they could continue pulling the same pranks they were pulling and use that in their next, ventures in the immigration hearings. So then I was called into a room with a couple of attorneys, and then it was just one attorney. I believe the other one left the room. And that man pressured me, and actually I want to make a note of something that's happened a couple of times. A couple of times when I've made a video in the last few days, and I've used a word like pressured, and just now it didn't happen, but I've used such a word, or talked about compressed. The metal that's in my tooth, I don't know how the military is doing this, and this sounds really bizarre, but basically they've done something instantly to cause my teeth to contract on this side and cause extreme pain, which I didn't react to just now, but it's probably the third time it's happened in 2 days. And it's not like someone isn't actively watching and listening and knowing what I'm doing right now. So the fact that this is continuing, I don't consider something like that to be some kind of research. I consider that just to be malicious harassment. And again, it's going to sound really strange to someone who doesn't know what I'm talking about, but I'm sure other people in other countries who have technology could figure out what it is, what it might be. And again, it's happened specifically when I've said used those words in the last 2 or 3 days. So basically, when I've been pressured into accepting the lawyers that have been given to me, and also I should add, I was not being tortured earlier this morning, but ever since I turned on my camera and started setting things up to do this video clip for today, my ear began to hurt from the same thing that they've been doing the last several days. And it wasn't happening earlier. It only happened when I started turning on my video camera and started setting things up. So it's been specifically, I believe, to target me while I'm making video clips about collusion, criminal collusion between Canadians, which is part of the Commonwealth, and the United States. So this attorney told me that I couldn't talk to a different attorney. I had to use him. And he took my story, but he was with me after all of the time that I waited to talk to him. He was in the room with me for it seemed like only a half an hour.